Maya wiped her hands on her apron for the third time that evening, staring down at the cluttered floor of the small cafe. The dinner rush had just ended, and she was counting the last tips with a sigh. It wasn't the money that weighed her down. It was the feeling of being invisible, of always being overlooked. Students, businessmen, couples, they came and went, leaving behind laughter and empty plates but no real connection. Her coworkers had been unusually quiet today, snickering behind menus and whispering to one another. She caught a glance from one of them, a mischievous smirk barely hidden. She knew the game. They had decided to mess with her again. She was used to their pranks, small ones, like dropping ketchup on her back or slipping sugar into her water. But this one was different. "You've got a date tomorrow," Chloe, her colleague, said with faux excitement, sliding a folded note across the counter. Maya frowned. "A date?" she echoed, skeptical. Chloe rolled her eyes and leaned in, whispering, "Don't be so dramatic. Someone set you up on a blind date. Apparently it's kind of a joke." Maya's stomach sank. She had expected this from her coworkers, of course, but the cruel amusement in their eyes made it worse. The note contained only a name, an address, and a time. She stared at it, debating whether to throw it away, ignore it, or confront them all. But curiosity gnawed at her. Maybe it was harmless. Maybe it was. The next evening, she arrived at the small bistro, nervously smoothing her dress. The lights were soft, casting a warm glow across polished wood tables. Maya's heart pounded with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. She had never been on a proper date. Her life had been consumed by work and family responsibilities ever since her parents passed away. She was scanning the room when she noticed him. He wasn't at all what she expected. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm presence that seemed to make the noise around him fade. His hair was slightly disheveled, giving him an approachable charm. When he looked up, his eyes met hers with a warm, genuine smile. "Hi, Maya," he asked, his voice deep but gentle. She nodded, unsure how to respond. "I'm Daniel," he said, standing to shake her hand. "I think we're supposed to meet for dinner." Maya's heart skipped. There was no trace of mockery in his demeanor, nothing to suggest he was playing a part. The evening began awkwardly, with polite conversation and nervous laughter. Yet, as minutes turned into hours, she began to relax. Daniel had a way of listening, not just hearing, but truly listening, that made her feel seen for the first time in a long while. "What do you do when you're not saving the world with your smile?" he teased lightly. Maya chuckled, letting herself forget the note, the prank, the cruel setup. For the first time, she felt like more than just a waitress, more than a punchline. Part 2. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, Chloe and the others had been waiting for updates, expecting to hear stories of awkward silences, embarrassed blunders, and outright humiliation. They were sure Maya would be the butt of the joke. Hours passed, and their phone messages were met with silence. Frustrated, they finally decided to check in. When Chloe called, Maya's calm, almost serene voice on the other end shocked her. "Dinner went well," she said simply. "Better than I could have imagined." Chloe froze. What do you mean?" she stammered. He treated you nicely." Maya smiled faintly. "Yes, he was kind, patient, and surprisingly genuine. I actually enjoyed myself." There was a pause. Chloe could almost hear the guilt forming on the other end. Unbeknownst to them, Daniel had a story of his own. He was a single dad, running a small but successful architecture firm while raising a lively 7-year-old son, Ethan. Life hadn't been easy for him either. A messy divorce and long hours at work had left him wary of relationships. Yet there was something about Maya, her resilience, her laughter, the subtle sadness in her eyes, that drew him in. As the night continued, Daniel noticed small details about her. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, how she seemed genuinely interested in his stories about Ethan's antics. He found himself telling her things he hadn't shared with anyone in years, and she responded with empathy and warmth. Maya, for her part, felt a connection she had never known existed. The prank, the embarrassment, It all melted away in the face of his sincerity. She realized that life had a strange way of turning humiliation into opportunity, cruelty into chance, if only one was willing to take the leap. Hours later, Daniel walked her to her car. The night air was crisp, and the streetlights cast a soft glow. "I had a wonderful evening, Maya," he said, his hand brushing against hers. She looked at him, her heart pounding. "Me too," she whispered. And in that moment, she realized the cruel joke had backfired spectacularly, not for her, but for those who had tried to mock her. Part 3. The next day at the cafe, Maya's coworkers were buzzing with curiosity. They expected a story filled with awkwardness and embarrassment, but what they got left them speechless. She walked in, calm and confident, holding a small bouquet of flowers. Chloe, still smug, couldn't resist asking, "So, how was it?" Maya smiled, holding up the flowers. "He sent these this morning," she said, "and he asked me to dinner again next week." Her coworkers' mouths fell open. Some exchanged guilty glances, others just stared, frozen. Chloe tried to hide her guilt with a laugh. "Well, I guess that's good," she stammered. "It's more than good," Maya said softly, her eyes shining with newfound hope. "It's real." Daniel, meanwhile, had called Maya during her lunch break to check in. "How's my favorite waitress?" he asked, his voice playful. Maya laughed, realizing she could finally laugh without fear or embarrassment. The prank that had been meant to humiliate her had instead introduced her to someone who saw her worth, someone who could look past the surface and see the woman beneath. She realized that life had a funny way of rewarding those who endured kindness and cruelty alike. Weeks later, Daniel and Maya were seen together at local parks, laughing with Ethan, sharing meals, and walking hand in hand through the city streets. Their bond deepened with each passing day, a testament to how something meant to mock could instead create a connection stronger than either had imagined. And as for the coworkers who had set up the blind date as a joke, they had learned an unexpected lesson. Kindness, sincerity, and a genuine heart could outshine cruelty every single time. The frozen expressions they wore whenever Daniel appeared were not just surprise. They were the silent acknowledgement that sometimes life has its own way of turning tables, and the people meant to be underestimated often become the ones who leave the strongest impression. Maya, once overlooked, now carried herself with quiet confidence. The waitress who had been a subject of ridicule had found her match in a single dad who understood her heart, her struggles, and her dreams. The joke had backfired, but in the most beautiful way imaginable, transforming a cruel setup into a story of love, trust, and unanticipated joy. By the end of it, the cafe's laughter no longer came at Maya's expense. It came from watching her thrive, knowing that she had discovered something that could never be taken from her. A genuine connection built on respect, admiration, and the courage to embrace the unexpected.